Do you ever find yourself in a negative thought spiral that you just can't seem to dig yourself out of? Or have you ever called yourself names and berated yourselves, actually potentially saying things to yourself that you'd never say to anyone else? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why this is happening. And more importantly, I'm going to give you a 3-step process to enable you to begin to crack and break this negative thought process. Now, it's not about affirmations and it's not about thinking tricks. It's science-backed pattern interrupts that can make a massive difference, even if, like me, you have years of self-sabotage behind you. But I'd like to start with a story. This very morning, on the day of recording, I spoke with a very good friend of mine, and she's got herself into a bit of a financial pickle. And on the call, she was calling herself useless and pathetic. And the most frustrating bit is she's a highly intelligent, capable woman, but in doing this, she's absolutely convinced that she is useless and that she is pathetic. But this stuff is surprisingly common, but I've discovered a way of beginning to interrupt all of this and begin to break free. And I've been using this for some time now, and I can honestly say that my life has and is turning around as a result. You see, at the beginning of 2024, I was living in New Zealand. I'd been there for 3 years, absolutely loved it, got friends, got a life, but I'd made a mess of my visa situation. And so I was applying for a job. I'd applied and been offered a job to be able to get a work visa. And unfortunately, I was made redundant and had to leave the country because I couldn't get a visa to stay. In effect, I'd messed up, made a mistake, self-sabotaged my ability to get a visa and stay in New Zealand. Now, I appreciate that getting made redundant wasn't necessarily my issue, but I had put myself in this position. So I came to Fiji with the view to applying for jobs to get a work visa to go back to New Zealand and to get back into being close with my daughters who were with their mother, my ex. But here's what actually happened when I got to New Zealand. I was paralyzed. I felt so low. I felt so stupid for having made a mess of it all. I genuinely felt like I was a mess, useless, worthless. And I just sit at my screen for weeks, not applying for jobs or doing nominal work to try and find a job. Now, you'd think that if I was desperate enough to get back to New Zealand, I'd be on it, I've been doing this stuff day in, day out, but I couldn't. My own negative thinking and my own self-loathing in many respects was keeping me stuck, paralyzed, unable to take any action. And this created a negative spiral whereby I wouldn't do anything, and at the end of the day, I'd give myself a hard time because I'd not done anything. And it really wasn't a good situation. And this is what negative thought patterns and self-criticism really does for you. It doesn't move you forward. It keeps you stuck. It paralyzes you. And the worst thing is then you don't do the action that it takes and you give yourself a hard time because you've not taken the action that it takes, and you're literally spiraling downwards. And if it's unchecked, it can have very, very negative psychological and emotional consequences. But here's what's actually going on here. Every time I called myself an idiot, every time I gave myself a hard time, I was reinforcing a belief that this was who I am. And what a lot of people don't understand, and very few people seem to talk about, is that what you say to yourself often enough becomes a belief. And whether you realize it or not, your beliefs dictate your behaviors. We are always acting out of our beliefs and our values. And you have the opportunity to program your beliefs and your values. But if you're constantly telling yourself negative stuff, eventually you'll start to believe this. Your subconscious will see this as a part of you, even if it isn't a fact. This is what your subconscious will believe. And this is then the behavior that you will bring to the world. And if you bring negative behaviors, and if you've got negative thoughts going on and negative self-talk, then again, it becomes a self-perpetuating belief whereby you do something or don't do something, which makes you feel like an idiot. You tell yourself an idiot, and your subconscious believes that, okay, well, we're actually just, we're ticking along here. We're doing things right because he's telling me that this is what's going on and this is who I am. You're actually identifying as what you are telling yourself. And it's a 3-part process. This repetition of what you say to yourself becomes a belief, which then becomes behavior. Now the thing is, I've been self-sabotaging for most of my adult life, and it's only over this last couple of years that I've begun to understand the psychological makeup of this and begin to actually start working with it. I wasn't doing it deliberately, I was just manifesting or acting out a belief system that had accumulated over decades. And had I not realized it, I would still be doing the same thing and still be thinking the same stuff. And if this is you, it's the exact reason why you can't stop these negative thoughts. You're not doing it deliberately. You are just acting out and regurgitating your belief system that has accumulated over time. So what was it that changed for me? Well, I read a number of books over the last few years, and a key one was a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, and I'll put a link to it down below. And one of the key learnings for me from this book is that you will never change your life for the better if you don't start changing the way you think about yourself for the better. And this started a journey for me where I thought, hang on a minute, the way I've been talking to myself, the way I've been thinking about myself is all over the place, and sadly it's mostly negative, and I'm just acting this stuff out. Now I know this may sound a wee bit woolly, but this is absolutely true, and the more I look into this, the more I realize that this is absolute fact, and the psychology behind it backs it up too. What you tell yourself, what you think to yourself, dictates your beliefs, and your beliefs dictate your behaviors, and there's pure hard science that backs this up. So let's get on to these 3 steps that have made a massive difference to me, and I believe can make a massive difference to you if you begin to get to grips with them. Now the first one, and arguably the most important, is to what's known as catch the attack. In other words, what you're doing is you're looking to identify and isolate, or just identify your negative self-talk and your negative self-belief system. Now this was highlighted in a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, where he simply says, whenever you feel or hear a negative thought or feeling coming up, just take a quick mental step back and just say, I see you. I see you. Now what you're doing is you're focusing in on this negative belief. Now even if you do nothing else and just practice this for a little while, I promise you things will begin to change, because you're identifying, you're not just falling into the habit of manifesting this belief, you are beginning to develop the habit of identifying where it's not quite working for you. Just by saying, I see you, you're observing this negative thought and this negative behavior. And this awareness opens up all kinds of possibilities in many areas of your life. You see, these negative thoughts for me were, you're such an idiot, or why the heck do you keep making a mess of things? And for my friend, it's, calling herself useless and pathetic, neither of which are good. So it's that step back and just identify this, I see you. Now the goal isn't to stop these thoughts, it's just to identify them. All you're doing is just spotting this thought pattern, because once you identify it, you can begin to rearrange and reprogram and then reassign your thoughts, your language, and your behaviors based on a new belief system. But it all starts with being able to identify and see these negative thoughts and your negative self-talk. You see, the crazy thing is, you're not your thoughts. And whilst it may feel like it, your thoughts are not real, and they're not necessarily a reflection of who you really are, but your brain can't tell the difference. So all we're looking to do is just shine a spotlight on the negative stuff. We're just going to identify them. It's because what we want to try and do is say, hang on, this is not me. And this is step 2. You see, in step 2, we're looking to replace the story. Now, like I said, you cannot completely eliminate negative thoughts, but you can certainly begin to undermine the credibility and validity of those negative thoughts and then replace it with a different narrative, effectively what's known as flipping the script. And to be honest, this is where the change and the shift really begins to happen. So, next time you identify one of these negative self-thoughts, you call yourself something stupid, just turn around and say, hang on, wait, I'm not an idiot. I'm learning here. I'm learning something here. Or, no, I'm not useless. I'm more than capable of doing this stuff, more than capable of getting on with this stuff. Now, what we're not trying to do, we're not trying to butt heads with our subconscious. We're just simply reassigning meaning to these thoughts. We're not literally trying to just steer it 180 degrees to go in the other direction. We're just trying to undermine the validity of this negative thought, from I'm an idiot to I'm learning, from I'm useless to actually I believe I'm more than capable, or just can't blooming do it, I don't seem to be able to manage it, to I'm learning what I need to do to be able to accomplish this. I'm more than capable of getting on with this. And the idea behind it is just to replace these negative, really negative thoughts with a positive statement of learning or intent. Not go from I'm useless to I'm amazing, because your subconscious will kick up a fuss and a loud noise and a lot of resistance to this. But go from I'm useless to I'm learning, or I'm absolutely pathetic to I'm getting better at this, to I always make a mess of this, to actually I've been quite successful in a few occasions in my life. And the idea really is just to begin to turn it around a little bit, turn it around, chip away at all of that negativity. Now, another thing to say to yourself that's incredibly useful is, if you are having a hard time, just to acknowledge that you're having a hard time. And instead of just saying, oh God, why does it have to be so hard? You could, what I recommend is you say something like, yeah, I'm struggling now, and that's normal, and that's okay with me. Because life is, it is up and down. You will have highs and lows. You can't smooth it out completely. No one can, doesn't matter who you are. So the more you can get to grips with things when they are challenging, and to begin to reframe it from, oh my God, why do I always make a mess, to something along the lines of, well, I'm having a hard time now, and that's okay, because I'm learning and I am getting better at this stuff. And the key thing to remember is that this is a process. It's a journey. It doesn't instantly change. There's no quick fix here. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. The easier it gets, the more you will likely do. And you start to get momentum, and the momentum gets faster and faster and faster, and you begin to see more rapid change. But it starts small. It starts with identifying these thoughts and then replacing them with intent and with more positive outlooks, not going completely 180, not completely butting up against, like I said, your subconscious, but just simply saying, I'm learning. I'm struggling right now, but that's okay. I'm getting better at this. And all you're doing is you're telling your subconscious a different narrative. You're beginning to replace the script. You see, the thing is, when you tell yourself you're stupid, you're actually lying to yourself. When you tell yourself you're useless and pathetic, if that's what you do, you're actually lying to yourself. And so why not turn that into something a little softer? Why not just undermine that lie? Yes, you may not believe that you're learning, you may not believe that you're more than capable, but you're much better off telling yourself something positive, because in time your subconscious will begin to latch onto it if it's repeated often enough. And like I said, what you say to yourself and what you talk about becomes your belief system, and your belief system dictates your behaviors. Now, step 3 is to prove it wrong. Now, what we're looking to do is prove your negative self-talk and negative thought patterns wrong by taking some action, some positive action that's going to take you where you want to go. Because the combination of telling yourself more positive stuff and taking action to prove that right and your negative self-talk wrong is massively powerful. You're hitting your negative belief system from 2 different angles, and it can make developing your life and changing your mindset so much faster and easier. Now, here's what I recommend. Make this action so small, so tiny, that it's almost impossible not to do. It could well be that you want to improve your finances. So can you spend less money in just one less cup of coffee in your local Starbucks every week? It may seem small, but when you do it, you're able to tell yourself, actually, I did it. I did something good. And make sure you reward yourself, or say yourself, give yourself a mental pat on the back saying, yes, I did it. I did it. I did it. I am capable. I am capable. I'm learning how to be better at this stuff. And I believe I am beginning to get a handle on this. And the cool thing is you make this action really, really small. If you're trying to get fit, for example, it could just be going out for a walk. Even if the weather doesn't look good, if you go out for a walk despite the weather, that sends a powerful message to your subconscious that you can do this. You're not as worthless, useless, pathetic as maybe you'd been telling yourself to this point. But try and make it small. Make it small. Maybe you want to write a book. Write a single chapter. I'm writing a book right now, and I'm writing a little bit every single day, because the whole chunk just seems a little bit overwhelming. And so the idea behind this is to do something small which begins to undermine this negative thought pattern that you've got. So just like me, when it came to applying for jobs, it took me 4 months, 5 months of being in Fiji. Yeah, 4 months of being in Fiji for me to start wrapping my head around applying for jobs to get back to New Zealand. And it didn't start with me all of a sudden going all guns blazing applying for 12 jobs a day. That didn't happen. In fact, that's never happened. But it just meant that, start taking a look at the job boards. It was really that simple. Start saving and highlighting jobs that I liked the look of. And then one day, I just applied for that first job. Did my resume, cover letter, sent them off. Took me longer than I thought it was going to, but that's fine because I was able to tell myself I did it. Next day I did another one and another one and another one, and that just became my routine to the point where 5 days a week I was applying for at least one job. Now, didn't get a job in New Zealand for a variety of different reasons, and that's okay. But the fact that I did it, I started small, looked at the job boards, and if this is you, just look at the job boards, start saving jobs you like the look of, read through them, start to ask yourself, can I do this? Would I enjoy this? And if these are yes, if you're answering yes to these, okay, well, can I make a start? Can I just tidy up my CV or my resume to more closely match this job, to highlight the skills that they're looking for? And then from there, can I create a cover letter that adds more to it? And if you can do those two things, then heck, you can go and apply for the job. But it starts with that one small step. Whatever it is that you're trying to change in your life, if you're into negative self-talk, then all you're doing is watching out for this negative self-talk, observing, catch yourself in the act. Number 2, begin to undermine this negative self-talk. And number 3, take some action, even if it's just tiny, because all of these three things combined will have a massive, massive impact on your ability to move your whole life forward. And I can promise you, as it has done with me, your entire thinking process will change. Your negative self-talk will rear its ugly head an awful lot less, and when it does, you can catch it. You can catch it, and then you can begin to undermine it and then move on by doing something. And it becomes then habitual. I'm not saying you will never have negative thoughts, you will. But that doesn't mean you have to be dictated to and paralyzed by them. You see, negative self-talk and negative thoughts is not there because you're broken. It's not there because you're weak. It's not there because there's something fundamentally wrong with you. It's just that you've been telling yourself a narrative for so long that your brain's just believed it. And then your brain just acts out what it believes from there. Your behaviors come from your beliefs. So this whole thing is just about catching, undermining, and then acting against these negative self-talk and these negative thoughts. So, what is it that you're working on? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're not subscribed already, please make sure you do. And if you really, really want to live a happier life, then I strongly recommend you watch this video over here.